Salut le campan, and dit salut le chouchou de l'essement. SORTES 23, Discothèque Nationale. SORTES is an online spinning collection of stories, poems, songs, and illustrations to help while away the wintry October nights. It's an oddball grab bag Wunderkammer mixtape offering distraction and refreshment. We have neither theme nor scene. Each issue is its own creature. We publish both the sufficiently strange and insufficiently boring Swart stories, hoity poetry, magical surrealism, beatnik travelogues, hard modern haiku, pulp, fantasia, anti-biography, crooning balladeering, experimental sentimentalism, and grainy upside-down photography. We also host online readings, which is where you is at now, as well as Radio Sorts, which are old-time radio performances performed by our Radio Sorts players, a crack team of people that can read things off a page, and other beloved gimmicks as they occur to us. Previous issues, all 22 previous issues, are available via the site's archive link. SORTES is published quarterly and accepts submissions throughout the year. Tell your friends and especially enemies. Everything is conveniently found at sortes.co. My name is Jeremy Tenenbaum. I'm the founding editor. There may or may not be several other editors scattered through the audience tonight. They can answer questions and guide you to the restrooms. Tonight, we have up to 10 performances, but between you and me, it's going to be far, far less, with a 5-minute intermission halfway through. Each performer is limited to 10 minutes. On penalty of public shame, please mute yourself during folks' readings. But you are required to unmute yourself when a reader has concluded his or her performance, so you can clap and hoot, because it is far healthier for the tender psyches of our performers to get some vocal love. I will introduce each reader. I will play a little music that's meant to be some sort of weird, gimmicky surprise and interruption. I will generally keep things moving. We might not have the absolute best reading out there, but my God, is it fast. A few of our authors can't make it tonight. Their pieces will be either performed by other people or probably I'll just read a few words from their pieces just to acknowledge them, and we'll keep going with the readers that are here. Lastly, there's a pretty good chance that my geriatric computer or I won't make it through the Zoom tonight. If I drop off, carry on without me. Just keep going, make it up, make up the rules, Lord of the Flies, figure it out. And I will join as soon as my computer reboots, okay? Okay, I've been looking at a screen with all these notes on it. I'm now looking at your faces again. Does anyone have any questions before we begin for real? Okay, good. Does that all sort of make some sort of sense? Okay, good. If I drop off, Alec, you are the highest ranking Sorts member here, I believe. How do you feel about telling people to keep going in my absence?
Fine.
Okay, that's all.
Well,
no, I don't know. You don't need to develop the. No, I love that. Fine is the answer I need.
Well, how do we manage maintaining the recording?
It's already going. It's going, and
Okay.
it'll keep going without me, I believe. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Or it'll stop as soon as I drop off and start again. So you can't do a thing about that. But
Okay.
we'll fix that in post-production.
Yeah.
Okay. I hope
Yeah, you'd have to make
off.
me. You might have to make me like co-head of something, or
No, I'm not prepared to do that.
all
No.
right.
Okay. But no, I really appreciate you doing that, Alec. In case there's a problem.
Yep.
Okay. Since we have no more questions, I'm going to play a little music in honor of our first reader. This is Laissez tomber les filles by Fabienne de Sol. Daniel Shapiro was a Peace Corps volunteer in Korea. Before retiring, he worked in software quality assurance. Now he spends his time gardening and writing. He lives in Framingham, Massachusetts with his wife Carol and cat Cisco. This is his first published short story. Everyone, a round of hoots and hollers for Daniel Shapiro.
Woo!
And remember,
Thank you.
mute yourselves, please, if you're not Daniel Shapiro. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The story is called A Circle of Red. The professor made an unusual discovery that morning. A small black spider he'd first noticed yesterday, at the time more of a distraction than a cause for alarm, had taken up residence on the third shelf of his tall oaken bookcase, where he kept his leather-bound journal collection. The bookcase contained a complete collection of the Antiquarian Journal of Archaeology, published yearly dating back to 1883. He had a special fondness for this particular journal, as it was here his first work was published, an archaeological exploration of southern Algeria. The web, which extended from the top of the volume downward in a diagonal fashion to the lip of the shelf, resembled a gauzy hammock tipped on its side. A streak of sunlight from the window slanted across the study to illuminate the spider's new domain. Would it now attempt to further expand its web to include other volumes? Only time would tell. The professor was in excellent spirits. He had recently signed a lucrative contract with the prestigious New York publishing house Endicott Barlow to write his memoirs, and was given a hefty advance to complete the first draft within a year. Writing the memoir would be a snap. He left behind a distinguished paper trail over the course of his lifetime, 200 plus scholarly articles and 15 books. The difficult part, as always, would be the preliminary work, deciding what goes and, more importantly, what stays, separating the wheat from the chaff. Fortunately, it was an aspect of writing he thoroughly enjoyed. He complimented the spider on its impeccable taste. Reaching for his teacup, he was surprised to find that it wasn't there. I must have left it in the kitchen on the kitchen counter. His face darkened. Here we go again, he said to the spider. He recalled a spate of absent-mindedness he'd experienced lately. Hard to pin down precisely when it started. Small things mostly, nothing to be overly concerned about. Forgetting to turn off the burner on the stove, leaving the water running in the bathroom sink, returning a quart of milk to the freezer, a box of breakfast cereal to the microwave instead of the cabinet beside it. Picking up the phone but not able to remember who he was calling, or remembering but forgetting why. He was convinced these episodes would stop once he began writing. He got up to retrieve his tea, stopped suddenly when he heard a decisive crackle of paper underfoot. Ha! Absent-mindedness strikes again. The floor was littered with reference materials: notebooks, maps, atlases, handbooks, manuals, monographs, journals. 50 years worth. Like an archaeological site, it was necessary to tread with care lest he trample upon valuable source material. Over the past few weeks, he'd overseen their migration from bookshelves, filing cabinets, desk drawers, boxes piled high in the closet and the garage. Material he thought might prove useful, he had stacked neatly in piles beside his desk. The remainder relegated to the floor to be returned to their proper resting place at a later time. Now he had to stop to clear a path from his desk to the door, something he should have done already. The tea was on the kitchen counter just where he'd left it. Recently, there had been a more troubling incident. It concerned his favorite corduroy jacket. He expressly remembered taking it to the cleaners along with 3 sport shirts. When he returned later in the week to pick them up, the sport shirts were ready, but not the jacket. As it turned out, it was not lost, but in the back seat of his car. Back at his desk, he sipped his tea and swiveled around in his chair to face the bookcase. Now, where were we? He certainly wasn't encouraging the spider, far from it. Access to his journals was critical, especially now. They were his lifeblood, his most beloved possessions. Rarely did a day pass when consultations were not made. It's true that online access was convenient, but it wasn't just the same. It just wasn't the same. Call him old-fashioned, but the smell, texture, and weight of each volume in his hands triggered sensory pleasures that could never be duplicated online. A word to the wise, my friend, he said, pointing a long bony finger toward the bookcase. Cease and desist. The thought of talking to a spider caused him to smile. So this is what it has come to. Hey, Billy Boy, a pet name his father had given him as a child. There had been some apprehension regarding writing the memoirs. Memoir from the French memoir, meaning memory. Time marched on. He did his best to keep in step, but increasingly found himself lagging behind. Why dwell on it? No one need question his competence or desire. He was writing a book, not running for president. There were caveats, of course. Don't make it too scholarly, the publisher warned. You don't want to scare off the lay reader. His agent echoed the sentiment. Folks these days aren't interested in anything that happened more than a week ago or takes more than a page to describe. Under 100,000 words is preferable, the publisher said. War and Peace, it's not. Remember your audience, the agent said, and don't be an egghead. Folks don't like eggheads. This would not be a problem. He was confident in his ability to hold the reader's interest with a combination of charm, humility, and most important, a solid grasp of the material, no matter the audience. Although recently he had confessed to his agent over the phone, a confession he now regretted, that at his advanced age, his memory was not once what it was. A formidable silence on the other end. For God's sakes, Bill, just keep it under your hat. You should have told me you wanted to write fiction. After that, no more was said on the subject. Last week, he expressed a similar sentiment to a colleague. His memories often resembled hieroglyphics, symbols of a bygone era, distant and remote, familiar but not always recognizable. He told him of the agent's reaction. His colleague dismissed it as insignificant. Don't worry, Bill. We all get old. Comes with the territory. As long as you can remember how to sign your name at book signings and on the backs of checks, everything else is great. He planned to devote this week to recounting his search almost 50 years ago for the Circle of Red. Even the most unscientific minds with the shortest attention spans, with only a clue as to the work of an archaeologist, couldn't help but be fascinated, dare we say enthralled by the subject. 3,000 years ago in the Sahara Desert, in what was now southern Algeria, just north of the city of Zeshti, literally translated as the city of grief, the great king Nadim, tormented by the sudden and unexpected death of his beloved queen Vilya, wandered out into the desert, slit his wrists, then plunged them deep into the earth until all precious fluids had drained from his body, forming in the alabaster sands a perfect circle of red, precisely 25 feet in circumference, nearly 8 in diameter. Circle of Red sightings were rare. Verification was difficult. The literature sparse. Oscar Tepesch in 1784, Cyril Dupuy in 1855, Jonathan Marigold in 1875. All trained archaeologists who at one time in their careers had made the circle their primary vocation. In its redness lies a hint of man, in its roundness the perfection of God, Tepesch wrote in his book, The Gospel of Hope. For whatever reason, he seemed more interested in exposition than excavation. It was filled with revelations on man's temporal nature, the true path to salvation, and the bounteous omnipotence of the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Perhaps he had spent too much time in the sun. According to Tepesch, a firm believer in the triumph of belief over evidence, it was not Nadim's blood that infused the sands, but more likely that of Christ. Given that Zeshti was 2,000 miles from Jerusalem, this seemed unlikely. Dupuy's descriptions of the circle were often vague enough to be useless. They could have been lifted from a dime store novel. More importantly, he failed to offer a single definitive clue as to its location. In a eulogy delivered by Cyril Dupuy, his son, 1 year after his passing, reprinted in Le Journal Archéologique, he explained that given his father's deep reverence for the sacredness of the natural order, it was not surprising he had intentionally omitted certain details for fear of revealing them might put the circle at risk of being forever defaced by what he described as the grimy hands of civilization. Then there was Marigold, William Marigold, who the professor considered nothing more than a profligate adventurer and lush. In search of a brothel, a besotted Marigold had stumbled off the main road into the desert and collapsed in a drunken heap. When he awakened the next morning, he lay prostrate, sprawled out on the circle of red, inhaling it through sand-clotted nostrils. That's it.
Thank you, Daniel.
Sounding good. Thank you.
Nice.
Daniel, I have the idea that you might have some fans in the audience tonight. Am I correct? That
Yeah, I
you-
invited a few people here
that,
tonight.
that you've brought a clique.
Yeah.
You've rigged out the audience. Okay,
A cheering section, yeah.
that's wonderful. Daniel, if I'd known that, you would have gone last, and
Oh.
all of these people would be forced to stay. And now I beg all of any of you who have nowhere else to go and nothing else to do tonight, relax, lean back, don't touch the computer, just just see what else we have to offer. Okay. We have several good readers tonight. It's not going to be a long night. It'll be a short program. So please enjoy what we've got coming up. I'm even eliminating the intermission, which we normally have, to speed things along. But I'll still play a little music here and there, like this. Reader tonight. So several readers unfortunately weren't able to make it, or terrible things happened to them. I don't know. Brenda Manhammock has a wonderful series of poems in the issue. Mateus Dutra has he's a Brazilian writer living in Portugal, and this is his first published story, and he has an incredible short story in the issue. And Sal DeFalco is at a baseball game right now, and I don't know who's winning. And in Toronto. And he lives in Toronto, and he has a short piece of flash fiction in the issue. So check all those people out. But our next real live human reader tonight is Allison Cross. Allison Cross spent 20 years as an international fashion model before transitioning to a career in complementary and integrative medicine with a focus on palliative care. As a writer, her short stories and essays have appeared in the Penman Review, Thieving Magpie, Green Hills Literary Lantern, and other publications. She was honored with an award in the Writer's Digest Annual Writing Competition 2024 and in Leaf by Leaf 2025. Everyone, Allison Cross.
Woo! Thank you. This is my first reading. Okay.
How's it going so far?
Okay. When you love a tree. I was planted on the day you were born. Cerulean blue etched the clouds. Contrails slashed it through. A breeze brushed against spring. My roots were a tangled, constricted ball, and it hurt when your father plunged me in the hole. When he piled the soil around me, dampened it with water, my roots began to stretch, absorbing, uncurling through the damp. My trunk was narrow. Your father placed planks on each side. Let me support you, he said. You'll be strong soon. I was far from the other trees, but they bent their branches and told the roots to reach for mine. Your first steps were toward me, barefoot in the grass, your mother's arms open, her laughter gentle, rustling leaves. A few years later, you would search for four-leaf clovers, lie on your back to speak to the clouds. You measured the width of my trunk with your freckled arms, pressed your lips to the jags and pits of my bark. This tree is you, your father said. You are this tree. Its roots and trunk will strengthen, support you when it's hard to stand. You'll grow together, draw strength from each other. When you love a tree, you're never alone. When my leaves fell in the autumn, you'd collect the perfect ones, a bouquet of red fire in your hand. You told me that you kept them all, pressed between the pages of your encyclopedias, ideas, people, and nature woven together, interdependence, you and me. You'd spread a blanket on the ground beneath me, serve tea for Martha, your porcelain doll. I'd make a canopy of shade on hot summer days, swat the bees when they came too close. You'd hide crumbs in my cracks, and we'd laugh when the ants marched up my side. You hid from the world in my branches, sat with your back pressed to mine, lost in a book. You had a deep love for stories and storytelling, favorite passages shared aloud. Your voice would change with each character, rising with excitement, lowering to a hush. Your stories were of lost girls, the lonely, the misunderstood. We grew together, my trunk widening, your chest budding, and when my branches were sturdy, you climbed to the heavens above. One day you fell and broke your arm. As you lay unconscious, I begged the sky to help, to split open, to cry. At the first crack of thunder, your mother came. When Minnie the cat was found dead in the yard, you placed her in a cardboard box wrapped with yellow felt. I dropped my branches to you. You used my leaves to wipe your eyes. Your father buried her at the base of my trunk, a red painted stone with her name in block letters, marking her resting place. When from my bark grew rows of fungi, you compared them to the acne sprouting across your skin. You could laugh at yourself, then only 13. Forbidden cigarettes smoked down to the filter in minutes, a bottle of vodka you shared with your friends. Clumps of vomit splattered, clinging to my patches, dripping to nourish the earth when one of you had too much. Your diary pushed into a hollow, out of your sister's reach. These secrets I guarded for you as you ran, gleeful rebellion, back to the house. You loved to touch my bark and leaves, feel the rough and smooth. You'd gaze at me, at the white-breasted nuthatch and yellow-bellied sapsuckers, the longhorn beetles, the ants and the spiders. You'd taken the colors, the scents and the sounds. You stood beside me in respect and reverence, for you carried your father's words. You are this tree. Its roots and trunk will strengthen, support you when it's hard to stand. You'll grow together, draw strength from each other. When you love a tree, you're never alone. I witnessed the kiss. I witnessed the kiss that pressed you against me, fingers splayed. I cried when he took a knife and carved through my skin a heart with your names. You tried to stop him, giggling when you said I was your best friend. Then we'll be together with your tree forever, the boy answered, and you accepted this, but turned your face away when the knife cut. When the branding was finished, the wounds bone white and wet, you opened your palms against me, pushed your body to mine. I didn't mean to hurt you, tree, but I love this boy forever, and this heart that you now carry will hold witness to that. You came back with the boy often, skipping afternoon classes when your parents were at work. From kisses to long caresses, naked bodies beneath me, pressed into the earth. Your hands would grip protruding roots, fusing us, your eyes raised to my leaves above. And then one afternoon you came alone. You cried for days, huddled against me until your mother came. With her arm around your trembling body, she led you to her car. When you came back, you were pale and trembling, and you climbed into my branches, something you hadn't done for years. I held you against me as you wept for what had been taken from you, for what you were told you were too young to have. After that, you'd stay with me for hours, press your lips and your tears to the tattoo on my skin. It was during a moment like this that your parents found you. Although they stood beside each other, I could see between them the chasm of empty space, cracks and breaks. After announcing your father was leaving, they walked away together, leaving you with me. The bottle of vodka reappeared. This time you drank alone. Weed replaced cigarettes, and a pocket knife replaced your books. I thought you wanted to whittle fallen branches, make carvings from pieces of wood. You cut your skin instead. For months you cut your upper arms, but then moved to your thighs. You lost weight. You'd fall asleep at the foot of me, curled into a ball. One day you cut too deeply. Helpless, I watched as you slit your wrist.
There we go. What's all
I screamed
this?
to the wind and begged the others to crash their branches against the windows of the house. I sent messages of SOS through my heartwood, my sapwood, my cambium, phloem, and bark, down through my roots, shaking to attention our Mother Earth. Ants and beetles crawled from their hiding places, squirrels and raccoons scurried from trees, and fresh leaves were gathered, nudged together, and pressed against the wound. For many weeks I didn't see you, and when you came, you held a piece of paper in your hand. Tree, I'm leaving, you said, and you told me you'd be in Europe for a year. You read from this strip of paper, I am you, and you are me, and folded it into a tiny square which you hid in my hollow that still held your diary from years before. You pulled your knife from your pocket, and I shook my lower branches, trying in vain to knock it from your hand. There's something I need to fix, you whispered, as you held my branch to your lips. Forgive me for doing this. It'll only hurt a bit. The tip of your knife dug into my scar, and you held me, your cheek against my bark. And from the boy's name, you carved tree. 1 year became 2, and then your mother died. When you arrived home, you jumped from the car and ran for the yard toward me, tears streaked across your cheeks. and I heard your mother's laughter, remembered your first steps. You decided to move into the house, and you cleaned the garden and painted the green shutters white. One day, the reason you stayed so long in Europe rang your doorbell, and you let him in. When you introduced us, he gave me a hug, ran his fingertips along my heart. "What a beautiful tree," he said. He pruned my leaves and planted wildflowers along my base, sprinkling the seeds across the lawn, tiny crumbs to feed the earth. He placed a ring on your finger high in my leaves, straddling my strongest branch. You'd started climbing me again. A wedding in the backyard, the altar standing proudly, was me. The birth of your boy, Christmas lights thread through my branches, Halloween ghosts, picnics, and a swing from a branch. Leo the dog barking at squirrels, the graveyard of Minnie the cat, and too many goldfish to name. Your son had just kissed a girl he loved under my branches when you told me of your diagnosis. You didn't cry, just recited the facts. Then you wrapped your arms around me, begged me for tree medicine, wisdom, and strength. Your husband put a sunbed next to my base, and when you were weak, he'd carry you, wrapped in blankets, and lie you down. You could stay there for hours, your eyes studying every inch of me. You didn't speak, but I understood. They filled my hollows with your ashes. You flowed over my weathered ribs, infused my grooves and cracks, as per your wish. My roots absorbed you from the surrounding soil. My vascular system carried you to my leaves. For as long as I am rooted here, you will circulate within me. I am you, you are me, keened the winds, and your growing boy held me as he whispered, "This tree is my best friend."
Wow.
Thank you.
Allison, how's the reading going now? Good. Is it?
A little
Yes.
shaky.
It's a little shaky. Okay. Well, that's that. I mean, I can
Thank
make
you.
them clap for you again. We can. No, maybe
That was
at the
great.
end. I don't want to. Yeah. Then I'll
Thank
have to
you.
make people clap for Dan again, and it's going to be a big deal. Okay.
Thank you
But
so
thank
much.
you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, everyone, wonderful. Next up, in theory, we had an intermission, but we've only had 2 people so far. And so I'm willing to sacrifice the beautiful intermission music that I had laid out. So instead, what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to look at some of the illustrations that are in the most recent uh, edition of Sorts. So let me just bring that up.
Core is ready.
Okay, everyone should now be able to see Nasta Martin's 7 illustrations, I believe. Okay, good. I'm just going to read a bit of who she is. Nasta Martin is an artist, graphic artist, illustrator, writer, and poet. She graduated from the State Academy of Slavic Cultures with a degree in art and also has a bachelor's degree in design. Nasta writes fairy tales and poems, illustrates short stories, and draws various fantastic creatures, unicorns, animals with human faces. She especially likes the image of the siren. In 2020, she took part in Poznan Art Week. You can see her on her Instagram, nasta.martin, N-A-S-T-A .M-A-R-T-Y-N 33. So here are some of her illustrations. We published 7 of them in this issue, and you can see that they're mixed media collages, and she's taken photographs of them. And I'll move through at a patient rate. But what you should do, of course, is go to the website and take a look at them slowly. I'm going to go a little faster. And that's Nasta Martin. So go to her website or go to her Instagram, go to our website. A brief, quick, snappy round of applause for Nasta Martin, who's not here, but whose work we've just seen. So hooray for Nasta. Thank you. Okay, onwards. I am so proud of this reading. It's moving along at a fantastic rate. I never knew before that the real impediment to keeping a reading moving is like the readers. And if we rid ourselves of the readers, we can get home in time for movies. Okay. Tonight, though, we have another real life human coming up right now. Let me just do one thing. Because we need a little intro music for our next real life person.
Je suis la fille que l'on colle sur les Harley Davidson.
Ben Guterson's writing includes the Edgar Award-nominated middle grade novel Winter House, and the from Holt Macmillan, and the New York Times bestseller The World Famous Nine from Little Brown Hatchet. Everyone, Ben Guterson.
Woo! Hey, thank you. Too much fun to be here. You can hear me okay, yeah? No problem?
Absolutely.
Okay, good. Well, I think I'll read something else rather than what was in the journal because folks can see that. Real briefly, I'm a huge fan of Jorge Luis Borges, and I didn't realize until a few years ago his output of nonfiction exceeded his many short stories that he published over the years. I didn't realize that, and I came across this collected nonfictions by him. And I realized he had written all these newspaper pieces in an Argentine newspaper roughly 100 years ago. And some of them were small biographies of writers and movie directors and all this. And I thought that's really cool. And so I thought it'd be fun to try to make up a bunch of these mini or capsule biographies. So I started writing a bunch and been sending them out. And Jeremy, you and the folks there, kind enough to publish one of them. But I thought I'd read a different one. They're very short. It's only like 3 or 4 minutes, but I thought I'd read a different one so you get a taste of what's going on. So this is capsule biography number 5. The one in the journal, I can't recall what number it was, but it was a totally different person. This is capsule biography number 5, Luis O'Wara, a competitor of yours, maybe a colleague, Burning Word Journal. And this was published a few months ago. I've been surprised. I've had about 7 or 8 of these published over the last few months. I write mostly kids' books, but I started sending these out and they've been published in journals. Lots of fun. Capsule biography number 5, Luis O'Wara. In April of 1968, Luis O'Wara created a Cedra, a board game she says has been played to completion by 11 people over 20 years. This claim has been contested. No one has ever finished a round of a Cedra, wrote Philip McKenzie in the gaming journal Square. It is nearly as impossible to understand the rules of the game as it is to know when a match has ended. Furthermore, combatants who abandon the game in frustration may not even realize they are continuing in some manner to play it. Critics contend the game fosters a type of compulsion. O'Wara considers this a virtue. The hallmark of any successful amusement is its ability to elicit obsession, she has said. O'Wara made her name and fortune with Around the World, a multiplayer dice and card game that sold in tens of thousands worldwide after its release in 1963. Though Around the World was credited with ushering in an era of so-called heavy logic gaming, O'Wara eventually disavowed the game, citing not only the dreary conventionality of its objectives, strategy, and maneuvering, but also the abominable illustrations on the board, box, and instruction sheet. It is an ugly game in all respects. In interviews, O'Wara has often invoked a piece of family lore to explain her interest in games. Following the sergeant's revolt in Cuba in 1933, O'Wara's father was to be executed behind a hotel in Havana for alleged loyalty to Gerardo Machado. When an officer with the assigned firing squad recognized the condemned man as a champion backgammon player, the man offered to play Wera's father a single game of backgammon and promised to spare his life if he won. I credit my existence to a double six my father rolled in the lobby of the Hotel Nationale, Guerra has said. In her early 30s, following a tumultuous divorce, Guerra began experimenting with board games she called alternately Transcendental and Infinite. Early efforts yielded games whose rules shifted according to readings of players' heart rates, games whose boards were the given physical environment of the players, and games that included increasingly perilous feats of physical endurance. In 1985, following an estrangement from two of her four children, Wera moved to Hibiscus Coast in New Zealand. She denies all requests for interviews and does not respond to letters or phone calls. She publishes an annual update in the magazine Straits of the number of Asaydra games active worldwide. Last year's tally was 32, though she offers no explanation for her accounting. In 1986, in what may be read as an act of apostasy or pique or both, she stated that several members of the Lisbon Circle have been playing Asaydra for 20 years now, even if they claim ignorance of the fact. I'll leave it at that. Woo!
Ben, I had no idea until you've read it out loud, and I've read several of your capsule biographies, and I had no idea that when you performed them, that biography took on the aspect of contact sport. That there's something.
I'm doing what I can. I bought a Chromebook not long ago because it's only cost me about $100. I figure if it gets messed up, it's no problem. I can get something new, so it's no issue on my side.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. And the one that's published in Source is fantastic. Is wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're moving along at such a breakneck speed that we have now reached either our last reader or next to last reader, depending on how things go. But just to mention in passing, a couple in the second set, a couple of people that weren't able to join us. Tom Gilboy has a wonderful piece in Sorts, a wonderful short story, and September Woods Garland has a very strange, short, dreamy piece of fiction, and well worth checking out on the website. Okay, our last reader, you know who? Well, let's play a little music. How's that? Wait, for a little music, let's do yes, this. We're working our way toward disco.
Sunday morning, sunshine from your eyes, sleepy face, smiling into mine. Sunday morning.
Roxanne Fequiere is a freelance journalist and copywriter. Born and raised on Staten Island, she now lives in Manhattan with her husband and two cats. This is her first published story. Am I correct about that, Roxanne? That's not correct. Oh, okay. And everyone, it's a phenomenal piece that I hope, I don't know what she's reading. She may read from it. She may read from something else. Everyone, Roxanne.
Woo!
Who was that last one?
My friend Jane. Thanks, everyone. I am going to read from my story, which is called Utilidors. I thought of Pedro when I heard the news. He'd been fired the day before it happened. 18 months of exemplary performance cut short, just like that. It wasn't fair, but we all knew what the rules were when we took the job. No talking, no baby holding, no breaking character. They trained us well. Some little monster would come along and kick you in the shins or something, and you'd surprise yourself with the discovery that you really could remain mute. The wildest part was that you'd be proud of it too, downright delighted with yourself for taking a beating without making a peep or a move to defend yourself. One time I was playing Donald. This kid's parents told him to smile for the camera, and for some reason, he chose to stomp on my foot instead, with all the strength his beanpole frame could muster. Well, I swear to God, the spirit of the duck himself must have possessed me, because not only did I hold my tongue, I actually managed to do that little hunched over single leg hop that he does in the cartoons with his fists balled up, like he's having a temper tantrum. One of my finest renditions, if I'm being honest, even though no one really saw it. The dad rushed in and hauled off on the kid, who started howling. The mother started yelling at the both of them, and then my handler announced that Donald needed to take a quick break. The people waiting in line didn't appreciate that very much. But the thing about it is I was elated. I couldn't wait to tell everyone backstage how I had channeled the pain into my performance or whatever. It seems silly now, but at the time I really felt like I had done the role justice. Pedro was a real professional, one of the best. A run-of-the-mill outburst from some wayward kid had never been enough to trip him up. So when I heard he'd been let go, I knew something must have gone really wrong. He was doing a set at Epcot on the day that ended up being his last, as one of the Aristocats. You know, the cats that live in Paris. There's 3 kittens, 2 boys whose names I can never remember, and Marie, the white one with the pink ribbon. Pedro got tapped to play Marie. You don't get to choose these things. And they trotted the whole litter out to the France Pavilion to do an afternoon meet and greet. Some guests like to do this thing at Epcot where they have a drink at every one of the 11 countries in the World Showcase as they make their way through. And France is right at the eastern edge of it, you can imagine. A group of guys who'd gotten good and drunk were all fired up over the idea that when you meet a male or female character in the parks, there's no way of knowing if the person inside the suit actually is a man or a woman. So they hatched a plan, queued up for the nearest character, and when it was their turn to meet Marie, one of them reached out and squeezed the crotch of the costume to see what they'd find. These kinds of things happen more often than you'd think, but in this case, the guy did it aggressively enough that he actually got a handful of Pedro. Well, Pedro snapped, swung on the dude, and then kept wailing on him while cursing up a storm from inside the costume. Pedro was a fairly small guy, which is why he was able to play Marie in the first place. So when the guests' friends jumped in, it became a full-on brawl, and Pedro ended up getting beat down pretty badly. Security managed to pull them apart quickly, but the damage had already been done. I heard they didn't even offer him any first aid before management told him he'd been relieved of his duties. Poor Pedro, we all said, tutting and sighing pointedly. Anything to avoid saying something out loud that might be construed as critical of the company. Damn, that sucks. Anyway, I thought of Pedro when I heard the news because we'd all been feeling so sorry for him, and then just a day later, it became so obvious that he was the luckiest one of all. He was probably at home when it happened, while the rest of us had to soldier on as though nothing was wrong. Theo ended up having a panic attack inside his sneezy costume backstage, and Marissa basically had a mental breakdown. I think they may have let her go home early, but all Theo got was 20 minutes to pull himself together, and then hi ho, hi ho. On the day it happened, I was slated to do a 12-hour shift at Magic Kingdom, 45 minutes per set with 30-minute breaks in between, the usual. By 8 o'clock in the morning, I was out playing Pooh and feeling ambivalent about it as always. He's a crowd favorite, so people generally seemed less likely to fuck with him, but from a logistical standpoint, working that suit always felt like trying to power through an obstacle course with the lights turned off. The weather was pleasant enough, but it wouldn't have made much of a difference to me since it's always sauna hot inside those costumes. I was halfway through my second stint with guests on Main Street doing my silly old bear spiel when I noticed that the line was thinning out. Some of these families had been waiting ages to get a photo, so it was odd to see 1, 2, 3, 4 separate groups suddenly gather up their things and leave. In retrospect, I guess they had gotten phone calls from home. When the closure announcement came over the loudspeakers, I was talking to this little girl. Not really talking, but you know what I mean, who was maybe 5 years old and very chatty. She had a lot of questions that I didn't quite have the answers to, but most of Pooh's shtick is about being slow on the uptake. So I was clapping one of my paws to my forehead the way he does when he's trying to make himself think, and that's when the message came through. Park closed, effective immediately, due to circumstances beyond our control or something like that. I can't recall what the girl looked like or if she had an autograph book in her hand, whether I took one last photo with her or gave her a hug before we parted ways. But what I do remember is that after the announcement, the music didn't come back on. No jaunty oompa tunes, no Surrey with a fringe on top, no nostalgic strings. The park went silent and shops began to shut their doors. Really unprecedented stuff. Everyone stood there in shock for a second or two, waiting for a familiar falsetto to cut in and tell us that this was some kind of joke. Haha. and we could all go ahead and carry on with having a magical day. When that didn't happen, guests began to talk amongst themselves all at once, and the sudden burst of crosstalk created this dull roar that seemed to rattle the windows of the old-timey storefronts along Main Street. The greeter who had been accompanying me during my set cleared her throat and announced that it was time for Winnie the Pooh to head back to the 100-acre wood. Considering the confusion of the moment, she probably didn't need to do a cute, character-appropriate sign-off, but like I said, we'd been trained well. Her carefully chosen words reminded me to snap back into character. I waved at the stunned guests in my immediate vicinity and shuffled off behind my greeter, carrying my hefty belly as though I'd just gorged myself on one too many pots of honey. Oh, bother. Inside the costume, the sweat pouring from my hairline trickled into my eyes, so I had to shut them tight. I reached my gloved hand out ahead of me and grasped the greeter's arm tightly as I stumbled along. As soon as she led me down into the utilidors, I pulled the bear's head off and tucked it under my arm as best I could. "What the hell is going on?" I said to any one of the countless cast members hustling past. My handler had already drifted off. "I'm not really sure," someone said. "I think I heard someone say that a couple of planes collided with each other over New York City." "No, they hit the Twin Towers," someone else said. "Jointly?" "Separately." "Right, like they hit each other and knocked into the towers." "One plane per tower, on purpose. They're evacuating all the parks," another person said. "Yeah, but they won't let us tell the guests why. People are getting seriously pissed off up there." That was when Marissa started screaming. I felt a sharp pain in my armpits, as though my pores were too small for the torrent of perspiration rushing to the surface of my skin. I should have gotten my things and left right then and there, but I didn't know which of my colleagues to believe, and we were underground at the time, which felt safer than racing to my old Buick just to sit in hellacious traffic getting out of the resort. The music had been turned off backstage too, so Marissa's whooping reverberated through the tunnels like a siren. If she had ever dared make a commotion like that within view or earshot of paying customers, a cast member would have swooped in to quiet her down in an instant. But as news of our national crisis made the rounds, a sense of chaos descended upon the utilidors. For once, the chain of command seemed to have dissolved. The poor girl was crumpled and caterwauling, and everybody, myself included, just let her howl. I passed by a break room with a blaring TV and ducked inside to escape the sound of Marissa's shrieking. There was a mixed crowd milling about. Women in colonial garb, cleaning crews, one macabre maid, food vendors in space military outfits, and a few character performers, one so wrapped up in the television that he had neglected to remove his head. When we're in costume, we're taught to keep our arms always animated, never hanging like dead weight by our sides. It makes the character look like a zombie, they say. This guy was wearing a Pluto suit, and I realized they'd been right. His stillness chilled me. Hands, ears, that dangling red vinyl tongue, all suspended in midair. As Katie Couric queued up a video of what had happened, I wanted to shove this guy, jolt him back into action like an old jukebox. And then I remembered that I was in costume too, looking even worse. At least there weren't any guests nearby. That was when I thought about Pedro, how fortunate he was not to be stuck here in the asylum as the world burned. Thank you.
Yes!
Fabulous.
Good.
Bravo.
And it gets better and better. Yes. So in fact, and I can say that for Dan's piece, I can say that for everyone who's had work in this issue, check out the issue, check out all the parts that you haven't heard yet. They're amazing. Okay, bizarrely, and briefly, we come to the end of our show. We had a lot of absences today, and this is where we are. So wait. Two things. One, I'm going to play a little music because that's what I do here. And two, I was considering reading a piece of my own to kind of fill out the evening. And then I thought, no, I don't have anything in issue 23. So what I'd like to do is end the reading, and anyone that hangs out after the reading can hear me read a little piece if you feel that you haven't heard enough tonight. Yes, it's a semantic difference, but important to me. All right? And for those of you who don't want to hear me read something, go as soon as you hear the music. All right. First of all, Even before the music, I want to thank everyone that's come here tonight. So thank you especially to Daniel, and feel free to take yourselves off mute at this point, everyone. Feel free to start hooting and clapping for Daniel Shapiro and Allison Cross and Ben Guterson, Roxanne Fequiere, and thank you so much for coming out tonight. 4 of our 10 reader writers and illustrators. And merci to all of you, bon ami. And we're going to have a little music to wrap up.
Hey, Jeremy, do you do this? How often do you do this with every issue release?
We do this with every issue, somehow.
Okay. All right. I'm just joining in the fun, so I'll look forward to future events. This is great.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to have some announcements on the other side, and then anyone that wants to can relax post-reading. And I'll read a little story too very quickly that has some French in it. But first,